You can't just walk out with medical supplies.
I'm not walking out. This is my practice. I'm moving inventory.
Sure, that's what they all say.
Verify it. My license is in the lobby.
The evidence bag crinkled like a cheap insult. Officer Grant Sutherland held it up under the clinic's fluorescent light, as if the plastic itself proved guilt. Inside were boxes of gloves, masks, a sealed package of dental anesthetic carpules, and one small, innocuous item that made the whole accusation feel absurd: a bag of disposable suction tips. Dr. Lionel Brooks stared at the bag for a long second, not because he didn't recognize the supplies, because he did. He ordered them, he signed for them, he stocked them. They were his clinic, his patients, his responsibility. And now a police officer was standing in the back hallway of Riverside Family Dental, telling him he'd stolen the very materials he used to treat people. "You can't just walk out with medical supplies," Sutherland said. Lionel's jaw tightened. "Officer," he replied carefully, "I'm not walking out. I'm moving inventory from our storage room to our sterilization area. This is my practice." Sutherland didn't blink. He tilted his head slightly, like he was listening to a lie. "Sure," he said, "that's what they all say." That line, lazy, smug, dismissive, would later appear in sworn testimony, and it would become one of the most damaging seconds of the case, because a few months later, after an $870,000 lawsuit and an internal review that pulled back more than one curtain, Officer Sutherland wasn't just reprimanded. He was fired, not because the city suddenly developed a conscience, because the record made him too expensive to keep. Rewind to why the clinic even called police, because in stories like this, the first mistake is rarely the loudest. Riverside Family Dental sat on the ground floor of a mixed-use building near downtown. Glass front, clean signage, a waiting room that smelled faintly of mint and disinfectant. The place was calm on purpose. Soft music, neutral colors, kids' toys in a corner, a wall of framed certificates behind the front desk. Lionel Brooks had built it from nothing. Not inherited, not gifted. Built. He was 46, the kind of dentist who still introduced himself to every patient like he hadn't done it 10,000 times. He did crowns, he did implants, he did emergency extractions for people who'd ignored pain until it became unbearable. And he ran his practice like a system: inventory logs, ordering schedules, strict sterilization protocols. Because in healthcare, small errors become big harm. Lionel's path to dentistry was long. He grew up in a household where the adults talked about bills like they were weather. He was the first in his family to graduate college. He worked nights cleaning offices while he studied. He got through dental school on loans and stubbornness. When he opened Riverside, he did it with second-hand chairs, a refurbished autoclave, and a promise to himself: no shortcuts, not with patient care, not with ethics, not with money. The clinic survived the first hard years. Then it thrived. And like all success stories in the real world, thriving made people notice. Not everyone notices with admiration. Some notice with suspicion. The building's management company had recently changed. New security contract, new policies, new language. They sent emails about after-hours access and unauthorized removal of property. They installed a new camera system in the service corridor behind the businesses, and they hired a new security supervisor, Derek Pruitt, who treated his job like he was guarding a vault. Pruitt didn't know the tenants, he didn't learn rhythms, he looked for violations, and one of the things he loved to say was, "If it's not documented, it didn't happen." Sounds reasonable until you realize who gets assumed undocumented. On the day of the incident, the clinic was busy, a full schedule, a cracked tooth emergency. A child's first cleaning, 2 implants in the afternoon, the kind of day where you don't sit down until your back reminds you you're human. Around 5:50 p.m., after the last patient left, Lionel and his lead assistant, Mariah, began closing procedures: sterilization, inventory check, restocking. They moved supplies from the storeroom into the sterilization area and treatment rooms for the next morning. That's normal, that's standard. That's how clinics keep the day from collapsing. Lionel carried a small tote and 2 supply boxes down the back corridor. He was still in his scrubs. His ID badge was clipped to his pocket. Mariah walked behind him with a clipboard, and above them, the new camera watched. At 6:04 p.m., Derek Pruitt saw the footage on his monitor. A black man, boxes, a hallway. Pruitt didn't see a dentist moving inventory. He saw a story. Someone taking supplies. He didn't check the tenant directory. He didn't call the clinic. He didn't ask building management what Riverside Family Dental's closing routine looked like. He did the quickest thing. He called police, and he framed it the way people frame suspicion when they want action. He said, possible theft. He said, medical supplies. He said, unauthorized. He said, male subject. And that language, male subject, possible theft, hit dispatch like a switch. Officer Grant Sutherland responded. He wasn't an experienced street veteran. He was newer, eager, the kind of officer who believed being decisive meant being right. He arrived at the building service entrance and met Pruitt. Pruitt pointed. There, he said. That guy. He's been moving boxes. I don't think he's supposed to. Sutherland didn't ask. Do you know who he is? He didn't ask, which tenant? He didn't ask for basic verification. He walked straight toward the corridor with the posture of a man hunting a crime. Lionel heard footsteps before he saw the officer, heavy shoes, a clipped pace. He turned with a box in his hands and saw Sutherland approaching. Hey! Sutherland called. Stop! Lionel paused. Yes? Sutherland's flashlight came up, even though the hallway was bright. What are you doing? Sutherland demanded. Lionel's voice stayed calm. Closing up, he said. Restocking. I'm the dentist here. Sutherland's eyes flicked to Lionel's scrubs, then past them, then back. You're the dentist, he repeated, skeptical. Yes, Lionel replied. Dr. Brooks, Riverside Family Dental. Sutherland pointed at the box. What's in it? Supplies, Lionel said. Gloves, tips, anesthetic cartridges, dental supplies. Sutherland's jaw tightened. And you're just taking them? Lionel stared. I'm moving them, he corrected, from storage to sterilization. Mariah stepped forward. Officer, she said, he's the doctor. This is how we close. Sutherland snapped his gaze to her. Ma'am, stay back, he barked. Mariah froze. Lionel felt the air change. When an officer tells staff to stay back in a workplace, it stops being a question. It becomes a display. Put the box down, Sutherland ordered. Lionel did, slowly, carefully. Officer, Lionel said, if you need to verify my identity, my license is framed in the lobby. My name is on the door. My ID is on me. You can call the practice line. You can call building management. This is a misunderstanding. Sutherland didn't move. He didn't glance toward the lobby. He didn't ask for a business card. He said, Show me your ID. Lionel nodded. It's in my pocket, he said. I'm going to reach. Don't reach, Sutherland snapped. Lionel froze. There it was again. The trap. Demand proof. Prevent the movement that provides proof. Then call the pause suspicious. Lionel lifted his hand slightly. Okay, he said evenly. How do you want me to show it? Sutherland's face hardened. Stop getting smart, he said. Lionel's jaw tightened. I'm not getting smart, he replied. I'm trying to comply safely. Sutherland's hand drifted toward his cuffs. And I'm trying to keep you from stealing medical supplies, he said. The accusation landed like a slap. Not because Lionel feared being arrested, because he feared the damage to his name. In healthcare, reputation is oxygen. If you poison it, you don't just hurt a person, you hurt everyone who depends on them. "Officer," Lionel said, voice low but controlled, "you are accusing me of theft in my own clinic. That's a serious allegation. Verify first." Sutherland scoffed. "Verify?" he repeated. "That's my job." "Then do it," Lionel replied. And in Sutherland's eyes you could see the shift, not into fear, into resentment, because some officers don't hear verify as procedure. They hear it as challenge. Sutherland stepped closer. "You're being detained," he said. Lionel's eyebrows lifted. "For what?" "For investigation," Sutherland replied. "Investigation into what?" "A man in scrubs moving supplies inside a clinic." Lionel looked toward the camera mounted above the corridor door. He made a decision. He spoke to the record. "For the camera," he said clearly, "I am Dr. Lionel Brooks. I am the owner of Riverside Family Dental. This officer is detaining me for moving clinic supplies. I am requesting verification through the office lobby or management." Sutherland flinched. "Don't talk to the camera," he snapped. Lionel didn't raise his voice. "I'm talking to facts," he replied. This is the moment the situation tipped from tense to explosive. Sutherland reached for Lionel's arm. Lionel pulled back slightly, instinctive, protective. Not a swing, not aggression, a flinch. Sutherland treated it like resistance. "Stop resisting!" he shouted. Mariah gasped. Pruitt, watching from the doorway, said nothing, and the camera caught the worst kind of escalation. A man trying not to be touched, an officer using that as justification. Sutherland shoved Lionel toward the wall. Not a punch, not a takedown. A forceful press that made Lionel's shoulder hit drywall. Pain sparked. Lionel's voice tightened. "You're hurting me," he said. Sutherland barked back. "Then comply." That word, comply, became the city's favorite excuse. It also became the jury's least favorite, because compliance isn't a legal basis for humiliation. Backup arrived. Officer Helena Ward. Older, calmer. She stepped into the corridor and immediately read the scene. Dentist in scrubs, assistant with a clipboard, boxes of supplies, a security supervisor hovering like a man who wanted to be right. Ward looked at Sutherland. "What's the probable cause?" she asked. Sutherland spoke fast. "Security called theft," he said. "He can't verify ownership." Ward's eyes narrowed. "Can't?" she repeated. Lionel spoke evenly. "I can," he said. "He told me not to reach. My license is framed in the lobby. My name is on the door. My staff can confirm." Ward turned her head toward the lobby entrance. She could see the framed documents from where she stood. She took 3 steps. Looked, and in 10 seconds, the entire case collapsed. "Riverside Family Dental," she read aloud. "Dr. Lionel Brooks." She turned back. "Release him," she said. Sutherland hesitated. Ward's voice hardened. "Now!" Sutherland let go. Lionel straightened slowly, rubbing his shoulder. Mariah's hands were shaking, not from fear of criminals, from fear of power. Ward looked at Lionel. "Doctor," she said, quieter. "I apologize." Lionel didn't soften. Couldn't. Not with the accusation hanging in the air, not with cameras watching, not with a security supervisor still standing there like he hadn't lit the fuse. "I want your supervisor," Lionel said, "and I want a report." Ward nodded. A sergeant arrived, Sergeant Ian Madsen. He listened. He watched the footage on the hallway monitor. He asked Pruitt why he called police without verifying the tenant. Pruitt said, "I was just being cautious." Cautious, another word that hides bias. Madsen looked at the supplies, then at Lionel, then at Sutherland. "Officer," he asked, "why did you go hands-on before verifying?" Sutherland muttered, "Officer safety." Madsen's expression didn't change. "Safety from a dentist holding gloves?" he asked. Silence. Madsen told Sutherland to step outside. Then he turned back to Lionel. "Doctor," he said, "I'm sorry. This should not have happened." Lionel's voice was calm and lethal. "It did happen," he replied, "and it was recorded." The immediate incident ended, but the accusation didn't, because the next day, the building management company sent an email to tenants about a potential theft incident resolved by police. They didn't name Lionel. They didn't have to. People talk, and in professional spaces, whispers become reputational injuries. A hygienist's spouse asked, "Are you okay?" A patient called and cancelled for personal reasons. Another patient asked at the front desk, "Is everything safe here?" Safe. As if the danger came from the dentist, not the officer, not the accusation. Lionel hired counsel, not because he wanted drama, because he wanted a record, because he understood institutions. They minimize, they reframe, they turn accused of theft into routine verification, unless the record is too strong to bend. Lionel's record included video. It included the "don't reach" trap. It included the shove. It included the officer saying, "That's what they all say." And it included the backup officer verifying ownership in seconds. The lawsuit came. $870,000. It alleged unlawful detention, defamation, civil rights violations, excessive force, failure to train and supervise. And it named not only the city, but also the building management company and security contractor in related claims, because they had created the environment, the suspicion, the call, the narrative. Now here's the twist that ended Officer Sutherland's career. Discovery. Because discovery doesn't care about excuses, it cares about patterns. And when Lionel's attorney obtained Sutherland's prior complaint history, a picture emerged. Not a single scandal, a repetition, multiple complaints describing Sutherland as quick to accuse, a note from a field training officer that he interprets questions as defiance, a prior incident where he escalated on a low-risk call and used the phrase "stop resisting" when the video didn't match, a supervisor email recommending remedial training. The department had kept him on. And now, with footage inside a medical clinic, the city had a problem. Because a jury doesn't just punish one incident. A jury punishes tolerance. Settlement negotiations began. The city wanted to resolve quietly. Lionel wanted more than money. He wanted an admission in policy. He wanted the building to change its security procedures. He wanted the department to enforce verification standards. Because the core harm wasn't the shove. It was the willingness to accuse without checking. The case resolved with a payout, $870,000, and then the internal discipline accelerated, not because the city suddenly cared about dignity, because the case revealed enough risk that keeping Sutherland became a liability. The department reviewed the footage, reviewed the prior complaints, reviewed his statements, and finally did what it should have done earlier. It terminated him. Fired, no parade, no confession, just paperwork. But in policing, paperwork is power, and losing your job is a consequence. Riverside Family Dental kept operating. That mattered. Because the easiest victory for suspicion is closure. If the clinic dies, the story ends. Lionel refused. He kept treating patients, kept hiring, kept training, but he changed. He installed clearer signage. He required building management to update tenant contact protocols. He demanded that security learn tenant routines. He kept his license framed in a brighter, more obvious place, not because he needed proof, because he learned proof gets ignored until it's unavoidable. Near the end of all this, a patient, an older woman who had been with Lionel since the clinic's first year, sat in the chair and asked softly, "Why would anyone think you were stealing your own supplies?" Lionel paused. Yarm didn't answer with anger. he answered with truth. Sometimes, he said, people decide who you are before they look at the facts. He adjusted the light, then he added, quieter. That's why we keep records. And that is the heart of this story. A dentist, a clinic, a security call framed as theft, an officer who chose accusation over verification, a record that made the truth undeniable, and a city that paid $870,000 and fired an officer because the footage showed something the department couldn't keep pretending was rare. Because when an officer can accuse a black professional of stealing the tools of his own work, the problem is never just the supplies, it's the assumption. And when that assumption is recorded, it stops being a private insult. It becomes a public liability. And for one officer, it became the end of his badge.